What's going on, y'all? Welcome to episode 26 of the Half Price Concessions podcast, featuring Roger Johnson of Performancenter Racing Warehouse. First and foremost, thank you to everybody and anybody who has listened to any of our episodes, or if this is your first time tuning in, we sincerely appreciate you doing so. Do us a favor real quick. If you're listening to this episode on Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review. It really helps us out. Be sure to also follow and subscribe to us on Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Overcast, Himalaya, Castro, Overcast, Pocket Cast, wherever you're listening to this thing on an app. Be sure to subscribe to us. That way your phone or tablet will automatically download new episodes. You can also share us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, however you get the word out. Any way to get more people listening in will really help us out. Thank you if you can do so. Roger Johnson occupies a different role in the world of weekly racing. He's not just a fan or a sponsor. He's a race car builder through his business, Performancenter Racing Warehouse. In this conversation, we dive into Roger's own background in racing, from being a crew member for a winged sprint car team to what brought him to asphalt racing, what makes Performancenter so special, and what he sees coming down the road in the world of racing. Heck, by recording this interview in Performancenter Racing Warehouse, we even got stopped a few minutes in by a customer coming in looking for some racing fuel. So sit back and enjoy this one. Episode 26 of the Half Price Concessions podcast with Roger Johnson of Performancenter Racing Warehouse is coming up here in just a few moments. Hey guys, have you heard about Anchor? Well, you should. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. First and foremost, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your cell phone or your computer. Anchor will even distribute your podcast for you. It takes all the work out of it. Your podcast can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Just download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. This episode of the Half Price Concessions podcast is brought to you with support from Performancenter Racing Warehouse. In addition to being the home of the PRW chassis, Performancenter offers in-house setups and consulting, plus suspension and chassis pull-down analysis, along with their fabrication shop that can re-clip your race car with the fastest turnaround in the industry. Give Roger Johnson and the Performancenter team the chance to earn your racing business by calling them today at 704-838-1400 or visit them online at performancenter.com. That's PERFORMANCENTER.com. So here on the Half Price Concessions podcast, and if you've listened to any episodes, you've heard a 30-second or 45-second advertisement for Performancenter and Roger Johnson, and we are at Performancenter recording this with Roger Johnson. So, Roger, thank you for taking some time for us. The shop's quiet. You can tell we're recording on a Friday. It's gotten a little weirdly quiet in here, but just good to see you, man. It's the second time I've been up here in a couple months, and the place looks pretty full of race cars, which I know is good for the guy who has to sign the checks to pay these guys.
That's it, right? Like, first of all, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming all the way over here and doing this. I don't think people understand the amount of work that goes into it and the amount of side. So I would like to thank you for doing it, first off. Second of all, thank you again. The shop is slammed. It's been great. We're so fortunate. My guys are, the best there can be, at least I believe, and I fight for them. Anybody that says different, but we're fortunate to be super busy, and it's that time of year. We're only a couple weeks away from the openers.
Yeah, I was about to say, for in the race car business, is this kind of the busy time where we're kind of about a month away or so from weekly racing and stuff? Is this kind of the busy time, or is the busy time kind of during the season when people wreck their race cars?
I think it used to be where this was just the busiest time, but the intriguing part is that our jigs haven't been empty in a year. So we've always been behind now, and I think with the upswing in how racing is conforming now, I think it's a big deal. I think most of your top teams are racing 12 months out of the year. So yes, the winter is big, to answer your question, but it's not as big as what it used to be. But then during the racing season, wasn't as big. So it's kind of
come and gone.
Yeah, it kind of goes up and down, right? It doesn't. Early on in January, we weren't very busy with new cars. We had cars to build, but as far as new cars to clip or cars that people were bringing in, it was mostly just all fresh builds. But it just hasn't stopped. We're still 4 cars behind.
Hey, that's a good thing.
Very
You'd rather
blessed,
be
yes.
4 cars behind.
For sure.
I know we'll get into a lot of the shop as this thing goes on, but I kind of want to dig a little bit
Sure.
just into your story, because for those of you who don't know, Roger has his own kind of YouTube podcast kind of thing called The Grind. You can subscribe on his YouTube channel. A lot of good video content, interviews and stuff, some that go 2.5 hours long. But and I've heard little snippets of your story, but I kind of want to get the full thing. So you're in quite a different capacity than probably most people that are just fans, go to a racetrack, maybe buy a T-shirt, but they're just fans. You're all the way in this thing as a business owner, so your passion has to be 2 times and 3 times fold, because you put so much on the line. So what I really want to hear is, where did this even all start for you? Like, what is kind of like your earliest memory of racing in any capacity, watching it on TV or going in person? What's kind of that early memory you have where you started to kind of grow for it?
My family really was not into motorsports at all. They were construction workers, and they weren't big fans. So I lived in a little tiny town in a place called Archibald, Ohio, which is in the far northwest corner of Ohio. And at 7 years old, our little tiny town had a street race.
Okay.
For go-karts. So I pedaled my bike. It was about 1.5 miles. So I got on my bike and I rode into town. We were country kids. And I watched this street race, and it was over. It was the end right there. Many of my classmates in school, we were in elementary school, had raced. One of them was Sam Hornish, Indy 500 champion. We went to high school together. We're dear friends all through. Some other sprint car guys, one gentleman, Tully Esterline, he's the head engineer, I think, at CNR Radiator. We had a kind of a cool little group of sandlot kids, right? And I went to my grandfather and I asked him for $1,300 for a Coyote go-kart that had a 5-horsepower Briggs on it. And he yelled a bunch of profanities at me and told me that would never happen, that I needed to figure out how to do it on my own. So I went to work. I've never mowed as much grass in my life as I mowed that summer. In the next year, I had saved enough money to where I bought not that same go-kart, but a go-kart. And thankful to be able to have many great people like Sam Hornish Sr. And we were all so young that we had to get a dad to drive us. Well, my family worked, so they couldn't go. So I kind of was the tag-along kid. I tagged along, and many great people helped me get here because my family just weren't racers.
Were there a lot of kind of go-kart tracks around your area where you could go race?
Yeah, we raced anywhere. Anywhere we could race, we raced. There was, up north, there was a lot of little towns that had cool little go-kart street races for their local little strawberry festival or whatever. It was a big thing.
Just like a little makeshift track,
yeah,
like a state fair kind of thing.
Right, but they wouldn't be makeshift. They'd be huge in Elkhart, Indiana, and all over up in the Northeast, right? Like, people took it for real. It was interesting. I remember seeing motorhomes, and we had a 12-foot trailer with 6 go-karts in it. We had them strapped to the doors and everywhere else. It was amazing, right? When I look back, it was probably some of the most fun that I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And I realized that I've raced go-karts for a while, and a few years. I'm going to say till I was probably 13 or 14. And I realized that I just wasn't really that good.
Just the hand-eye coordination wasn't there.
No, I didn't like my neck being all jacked up in there, right? Like we started going to bigger racetracks, and they just were starting to allow us on like super speedways, 3/8 mile tracks for go-karts where we would put full body fairings on them, and it was a good time, right? Like it was fun, but I noticed I really wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't that good. I was surrounded by phenomenal people.
Yeah, Sam
I found
Hornish.
out later. Right? Kyle Sauter, he's multiple World of Outlaw wins. We raced a lot with Danica. There was a lot of different people in that. Shane Meal used to come up and race. There was a lot of good people that raced along there. And it just didn't, I wasn't good. My cars were good.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't that good. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take another direction here. I'm going to start working on these things. So I started working on them, and they went really good.
About what age was that where you made that turn?
13 or 14.
Okay. So
Yeah.
about middle school, high school age.
So one of my friends, we were all kind of entrepreneurial kids, and his dad owned a TV VCR repair place.
Boy, you can't find those no more.
100% right. It was called Sauter's TV VCR Repair, and they had bought a sprint car.
Oh.
And I was 14. It was on. I had never seen this before.
Now, was that a 410 or was that one of those?
It was a 360 sprint car.
Okay.
It was
close.
a step below 410. We could race at a local dirt track. Here was the problem. None of us were old enough to drive the vehicle to get there. So we bought an old busted trailer that somebody had crashed and an I-beam had gone through, and we patched it up, and we started doing all this. Well, we went out and went pretty good.
Yeah.
And then we went good some more, and then we went good some more, and I found a passion on the dirt racing thing. My grandparents' construction company had sponsored dirt racers some, so I completely went a different way because I didn't think I could get a fair shake. They sponsored Scott Bloomquist's car quite a bit. It was the Miller Brothers Construction on the side, and I was afraid if I went that route, people would think that because my grandfather's company helped them, it was an unfair shake for me. So I went completely the opposite, the hardest road I could go. And I got to be about, we sprint car raced a lot. We won 10 or 11 360 races in one season at Eldora.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we raced all over. It was a great time. And I went to college for a while. I enrolled in college, and then I kind of came up missing. I got an offer to go with Frankie Kerr on the All-Star Circuit of Champions.
Nice.
And I kind of just abandoned college. Didn't really tell.
You just dropped out.
Yeah, I didn't really tell a lot of people. I think they still thought I was going, but I wasn't. Right? I was gone.
So now you're getting to go help a 410.
Right, and a legendary 410 sprint car racer in Frankie Kerr. He was a 10 or 11 or 12-time All-Star champion. He is down here now. He has worked at many different cup organizations, crew chief for Robbie Gordon, many people. Very smart. One of the most influential people, I think, probably in my career, for the simple fact of he just knew how to do everything. He could run a lathe, he could run a mill, he could lay fiberglass, he could work on motors. He just gave me a lot of discipline to be able to not necessarily have to be an expert in any one thing if I was well-rounded enough.
Yeah.
And post that, I got an opportunity to go with Darren Pittman.
Oh, that's a big name that's still out there running.
Yep. So I was 17 or 18, and I was maybe 19 at this point, and I had we were on some kind of break, and I came home, and I got this weird call on my phone from Oklahoma, and it was Darren, and I had not really met him before, and he asked me if he had just fired Kenny Woodruff, who was a legendary crew chief in sprint car racing, one of the winningest ever with Dave and Dale Blaney, and he asked me if I would like to give this a try, and I would come out on the road, and we would go at this. So
was he running World of Outlaws, or was
yes.
he kind of picking it? Okay,
he was running World of Outlaws, but not on a full-time basis at this point.
Okay, he's picking and choosing.
Correct.
Okay.
So he said, we never talked about pay or nothing.
Of course not.
Nope.
You were 19.
Right. He said, where do I get you a plane ticket to? And I said, I told him this Toledo, Ohio. There's nobody living, right? He flew me to California. I spent 2 days. I completely took everything apart, started over. We went out and won the next 2 races. He had never won a World of Outlaw race before.
Yeah.
And it was on after that.
Did he own the team, or was he driving for somebody?
His dad owned the team.
Okay.
They owned chains of auto salvages in the Oklahoma area.
Yeah.
And we went after it. But the intriguing part was we didn't have all the stuff that everybody else has. Even though his dad, the viewer right now is thinking, oh, another rich kid. Yes, but no. We were not allowed to do it like that. We had a standard trailer. We got a couple motors. We didn't have the 4 million, right? Like we worked out of the garage. They had a 3-car garage that I turned into a shop. I lived above the shop, right? Like it wasn't. We changed motors in the parking lot. It was different.
There was no open checkbook.
No. It was very. I had to be accountable for almost everything that happened, and we should have been. We were young. We were stupid. I think about it in today's times, right? Like when I turned two couple 19-year-old kids
loose right? on the road,
and one 21-year-old kid, because we had to have somebody that had a CDL license.
Yeah, you got to drive the rig.
Correct, but nobody was old enough. Again, so we had a great time. Those were some of the greatest times I think I ever had in life.
And when you're running 410 winged outlaws like that, I mean, you're racing so much.
Yeah,
it's nothing for those guys to run 80, 90 programs a year, not counting the ones that get rained out.
The most we ever run was 135 nights.
Goodness.
Yes.
Man, that's a lot of racing.
I would usually come home from the road. As soon as the banquet would be over, I would get a week or 2 weeks, and then I would be right back. So I would spend less than 20 days all told home.
Wow. That's just so much racing. I cannot get over that. Like, I know we're hearing some sound coming from the outside here.
Sure where that is.
Talk about 130 nights of racing. So, I can't fathom that. I can't get over that.
It was a brotherhood.
I mean, that sounds like there were some weeks there where you were running like Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday.
There was some nights where we raced every night. We would have different segments, Ohio Speed Weeks, Indiana Speed Weeks, Pennsylvania Speed Weeks, where you would race 4, 5, 6 nights. We would have nights where we raced in Texas, where we would have to 2 days from then be in Oklahoma. So a lot of differences.
Man, that is just nuts here.
Yeah. Hey, man, what's up? Good. We don't have any. Nope. I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll probably in the next, I would say maybe next week sometime.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that. All right, bye-bye.
So, you're running. See, I'm glad I'm going to keep that on there because that just shows that we are actually in the shop.
Right.
If anyone doubts, we ain't in no sound studio. We are actually.
This is the way it's supposed to be. We had a customer walk in.
Well, we could hear him outside the parking lot.
We get a lot of drag race guys that like to buy racing fuel, so we sell to all kind of people. Anyway, go ahead. Where were we?
So you're running now. Was that all winged outlaw, or would y'all sometimes go run the wingless shows?
All winged cars. That's we would, but we could pick up the World of Outlaw events. Plus, we could pre-race some of those places sometimes. Yeah. You could race all-star events. It was the same rules, same motor, same whatever. And it was a good time. It was really a good time. I've never been. I think it's one of the reasons that it's still so strong today, is that it's a community. Like, if you knocked a rear end out, if you crashed and knocked a front axle out from underneath your car, I was the crew chief on this thing, and it was all I could do to get to it, because so many people were helping you to go back on the racetrack.
Now, and that still happens today.
Correct. And I struggled so badly when I came down here because that wasn't the way we raced.
Yeah.
We raced that we all wanted to race, and we traveled with these people so many nights a year, and we wanted to see you. We didn't want to beat you the wrong way. We wanted to beat you the right way. And I think that's some of the morals that dirt car racing still has, that it allows it to still gain its growth.
It's something that, like, when I watch on Dirt Vision and you see a sprint car go on the wall or wreck or anything that looks like it can be repaired to get the car back out there.
It's on.
For people that are maybe more versed to watching NASCAR or some other form of racing, when the car comes in the pit or in the hot pit and they see 10 guys jump on it and only 2 of them are wearing the same shirt, they're like, what are they doing? Right. And it's like, well, everybody has basically the same stuff. The car doesn't seem terribly complex. Obviously, your setups are a little different, maybe little things here and there. But for the most part, like, there's a great thing. I don't know if you listen to Open Red, the World Outlaws podcast. They did an episode with 2 of the crew guys that are out on the road here in the last couple of years. And they say the first things that happen is the wreck happens, and then other people will come up to you and be like, hey, what size bolts? You know, what size whatever.
100%.
And everybody just jumps on it, and it's just because you guys are traveling so much,
100%.
You're all you have out there is each other.
That's it. The intriguing part, why I think I loved it so much, is we would go places, and because we were all staggered throughout the United States, like when we would be up north, we would work out of my family's garage, or when we would be in Indiana, we would work out of Gertie's engines, or when we were always at someone's shop, and it might be the people that you were racing against that very week, but we all parked our stuff to the same. We all stayed at the same hotels, so we could all have fun. You know what I mean?
Cutting loose after a night.
We didn't have a lot of downtime because we raced in the evenings. We would car wash. Then we would have to be back up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning because we needed to run valves and mount tires for the next night. Well, the gates open at 1 or 1:30 for the next night, so we need to be over there in line to park and sign in. The races start at 6, and we would all go again, over and over and over and over again.
Another thing those guys talked about was how valuable it was where you would start to memorize what tracks had a good, reliable, well-lit car wash
100%.
nearby.
Yes.
You were out on the road, so
100%.
you testified to that.
Loved it. Yes. We would actually just get hotel rooms to shower, because a lot of time we would shower after the event. I kept big muck boots in the trailer. We would just change and go in and pressure wash everything and leave it in the trailer. A lot of time we would go get a hotel room. Everybody would take a shower. We'd pile in the truck, drive 10, 11 hours to wherever the next race was going to be the next night. We'd wake up and you'd be in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you'd get out and drop the tailgate in whatever parking lot you were in and turn the radio on and go back at it again.
So how long did you do that? How long did you kind of run on the road?
I think I did that for 4 or 5 years. I had a really good time. It was probably the best 4 or 5 years of my life. Not that it's bad now. I just there was no responsibility, right? Like I was living my dream. It was amazing, right? I didn't come from a racing family, so it was just really something that was all me. I really wanted to do it, and I did it. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah. So what pulled you off the road? What made you say, all right, let's go a different direction? Or was it even your choice?
I got some opportunities to do some things that I didn't think I could turn down. The World of Outlaw deal is, and I'm sure any of those gentlemen that have ever done it will tell you that it's like dog years. You age like 7 to 1, right? Like, I mean, you're just going so hard all the time. I think it's kind of the closest I can imagine to like working on an oil rig or being offshore fishing, or you know what I mean, just craziness the way it's happening. And I got an opportunity to come work for AJ Foyt.
Oh, who can turn that down?
I couldn't.
I mean, that's greatest American racer.
I couldn't. This kid was.
How does that come about?
So I had a friend. His name was Sean Irvin. I think he works Tunes Motors for Roush now, that I met in the racing thing, and he worked at AJ Foyt's, and once it all kind of came together, AJ really had a lot of people that I knew that worked there that I never knew, that just from going through the sport, different people that I had met in different organizations, and they offered me a job, and the money was terrible, but I didn't care. Because it was AJ Foyt, and I thought it was legendary stuff, and I got in it, and that was it, right? Like, I moved here. They were teasing me because I didn't have to drive the truck anymore, and I didn't have to be able to change the valve springs. I didn't have was really compartmentalized for me. I struggled with it very, very hard in the beginning. People, I think, thought you were out to take their job, and I really wasn't out to take their job. I was just used to working 16 to 20 hours a day. That's what we did. Everybody went home at 5. When I moved here, I knew absolutely, positively not one single thing about front suspension on a race car. We have solid axles in sprint car racing.
Yeah.
Even in go-karts, we had solid axles that I put in a bandsaw and cut so I could move. But we never... So I had to learn again. So I had to go hard to be able to try to catch up with legendary guys that had been doing years and years and years. And on day 1, I dropped the Daytona car off the plate.
Oh. Oops. How did
People
you
don't
get
talk
sick?
about stuff like this.
Did you get sick to your stomach?
Yes.
Oh. How did it even happen? Was it just pure accident or just ignorance and you just needed to learn?
No, there was the plate guy was there, and he was working on the plate, and I was standing there observing, and he asked me, we were talking about bump steer and different things that we did, and he asked me if I'd let the jack down, and I was a sprint car kid. They don't roll away. They're direct drive.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
It's not going anywhere.
Unless you can turn that thing over. So he asked me if I would let it down, and I didn't know that it was supposed to be chalked, and I let it down, and he blamed it on himself, right, which was great because I would have probably lost my job, and I blamed it on me, and I left immediately, and they all thought that I quit. But I'd realized that the fab shop were all mostly local North Carolinians. And they really like to go home at 5 or 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So this Yankee kid from Ohio, 2 days before we're getting ready to go to Daytona, dropped our primary car off the scales. I left. I went to the convenience store. They all smoked Winston Lights.
Yeah.
I bought every carton of Winston Lights in the entire place. There's an ABC store at the corner of Route 3. I went in there, and I bought quite a bit of brown liquor.
Yeah.
And I was making no money, so I actually spent almost 2 weeks' pay.
Good. I'm about to say, just on the cartons of cigarettes, you probably dropped a ton.
I took it in there, and I told each individual person that I was sorry, that it was my fault. And initially, it went over really wrong.
Because they'd heard the other guy take the blame?
Right. But a couple weeks later, it went right. And I've kind of been going ever since.
Wow.
I think that was kind of like my defining moment. Is this going to fit in, or am I going to go back sprint car racing? But it's all about people.
It seems like such a different culture.
It is so different.
I know you had to learn a lot of different things, like you were talking about just the suspension stuff, but just the culture is so different. Not just dirt to asphalt, but I mean sprint car racing to, what you went to. It seems like you went from being on Mars to being on Mercury.
Yeah, sprint car racing wasn't like we weren't after each other's jobs. It wasn't that way. It was you got in the machine, and then it was a privilege to kind of be in the machine, right? We had a lot of good time. You at least I felt privileged to be at I told my dad one time, I said, "You're never going to believe this. They're paying me to work on this thing in a parking lot in Pennsylvania. You're never going to." And he's like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm like, "No, this is amazing," right? Like, that's how I knew that was my hook. And if I just didn't think that I could live a conducive family lifestyle in being gone 50-ish weeks a year.
You probably couldn't. Okay. I mean, most of those guys admit that.
Correct.
You got a girlfriend or wife or kids. I mean, you're just not there.
Tough,
you're
right.
you're on the road all the time.
That's it. So I came here, spent some time, moved on from AJ Foyt's to work with Casey Kane for a while. Worked with Jamie McMurray at the Yellow Freight 1 car. I enjoyed the Nationwide series, I guess Xfinity or whatever. Yeah. I enjoyed it quite a bit more. I never really enjoyed racing on Sunday that much.
Yeah, you wanted that time off.
Yeah, and I don't even know that it was a time off, but my family worked very hard, but Sunday was always a day that we spent together, and I think that was always from a young kid, and I think that's stuck. Does that make sense? Like that's stuck even
like
today.
A tradition thing.
Yeah,
kinda.
even today, Sundays are our day, right? We get up in the morning and we go to church and we have brunch afterward, and once in a while we get a customer that needs to drop something off up here, so I con everybody after lunch that we're going to make a quick run up to Performance Center, right? But we're still all together, and I think that was one thing that I really missed, and so I kind of walked away from the Cup deal once my son was born. I thought this is a time to kind of take some steps backward.
Yeah. So, it's funny you mention that, because now we get to this place, Performance Center.
Sure.
And it's easy for me to remember how long you've been here, because it's the same year that I started racing out in 2010. Sure. So, how do you even get to the point where, being in the ownership stake that you are, where that even becomes a thought? Like where to take me back to that? Where does that even come from at the origin?
All right, so Toyota started up like a little side satellite deal. David Green was going to drive it for them. There was some investors out of Michigan, I believe. So I was doing it, and Tom Pistone, who was one of the original owners of Performance Center, there was two. He was one of the originals, and he and I were neighbors.
Okay.
We lived a couple homes apart, and we started talking about different ways that I could help him, or we could benefit together just from all the things that I were doing. We sat out back over a couple beers, and we're trying to figure out ways to both improve. And
were you kind of fully aware of his legend? I mean, Tiger Tom Pistone is.
Well, it's his grandson, right?
Yeah.
Like, so there was tons of history behind what they did, but and great guys. I thought, man, I can really improve this. And he had a really good group of employees that already worked here. So I thought, well, let me see if this works. So I got a car and did a little bit in here just to see kind of if I could make it all work out, and it worked pretty well. So one night over dinner, I think we were out to dinner actually with a group of people or something, and Tom Pistone said, Mitch West was calling his cell phone, and Tom Pistone said, you should take this. You can give him more answers than I can. And I thought it was amazing. I was like,
he just trusted me to be his customer
right.
service.
Wow, how great was that? I mean, Tom has been very good to me for a lot of years. Many people in this racing deal have helped me so much to get me to where I am now. I just decided, let's go.
Yeah.
And he and I made a deal. I, without much hesitation, went and I wanted to hire Greg because Performance Center before didn't necessarily build its complete own cars. They bought pieces from multiple different vendors, and this was kind of like an assembly facility. They bought
for the LTO.
Correct.
The LTO chassis.
Right. Bobby Creech did like the center sections, and I think they did the fronts and they did the rears. And I bought a couple cars from Bobby early on, maybe one or two, I think. Until I got everything settled out with Greg. But I quickly realized that Bobby and I did business completely different ways, and that wasn't going to work for me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty straight down the pike. There's no gray, it's black or it's white. This is what it is. And he had some different ideas, so I called Greg Marlowe and asked him if he wanted to go golfing. And everybody freaked out, I guess, because we were supposed to be arch enemies because we were opposing shops, you know. They were kind of oil and water, the LTO brand and the Marlowe brand. You know, LTO was a big 5-star distributor, and the AR bodies were
on the
Marlowe side. So it was definitely a 3 or 4 mile radius divided hard. And I didn't want it to be divided. So I went to Greg and I asked him if we could go golfing. I'm a terrible golfer, just so we're completely clear. We golfed 3 times in 1 week together, he and I. And he beat me every time, very badly. And we drank a couple adult sodas and kind of hashed out a plan to see if we could make it go forward. And we had a good time.
About to say.
We're still having a good time. I got him back. He comes back. Works for me a couple, 2-3 days a week now.
Pops up on your podcast too on YouTube.
Love it. Right. Yeah, I love it. I want to keep those guys around. I think they're the key to our success. I think that if we allow the data that those gentlemen like him or Kerry Bodenheimer or Larry Pollard or even Jay Hedgecock to a point, right? A legend of the sport. I think that if we let that slip away, it's just unfair to the generations that come behind us. I think these are great men, and yeah. I think we gotta. I think that older guard doesn't necessarily exactly know how to tell their story, so I think we need to help them.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm trying to do.
So, as a business owner, as you come in, what was kind of like? I'm sure you had plenty to learn. I'm sure for running a business, but what was kind of your first kind of big kind of hiccup or in the road where you kind of had to learn, okay, I don't want to do it this way, I need to do it a different way? Like was there anything that hit kind of right off the bat that you were like, wait, it's like where you kind of had to, like an education moment for you?
I was so in the cup deal, right? Like I was the car chief on the 32 Tide car. Our budget was $12.4 million. Like
money,
we went hard, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then I came in here and I realized most of my customers, or I shouldn't say most because that's an unfair statement, a select group of my customers, you have to figure out how to help them without them spending money. That's the key. The key is that anybody, and my family has used this kind of as a motto for their life, and it's funny how it came back to me later in life. Anybody can spend money and accelerate the way things go, but it's really great when you don't have the money and you try to assist that way. So I actually had to pivot my game plan so far because the way I knew how to solve the problems was not the way that the local racer could afford to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So the cadence became different, the communication. I got cussed by more than a few early on. Marlo tells this story way better. Like, they just didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah, like you were speaking a whole different language.
Correct. I was talking about caster gains and camber gains and slip angle saturations and showing Greg plots of how things worked, and people were looking at me like I had 12 heads. That wasn't it. And I tried to be stubborn and think that I could teach them and they'll just do it my way. It took me a few years to learn that it's not really how it works, that I needed to figure out how to better communicate with them. And so I went back and I kind of altered the way that I did things so that the customer base could better understand.
Yeah.
That was all I wanted from the beginning. The delivery wasn't very good.
You're kind of like Steve Jobs. You were a little too far over their head.
100%. And it was my own fault. And thankfully, I had great people around me. Greg Marlowe. Greg and I have always got along good because he's not afraid. So many people are afraid to tell me the truth.
Yeah.
And Greg and I's deal for 10 years now has always been, no matter how bad it is, if you think I'm messing up, you tell me I'm an idiot. I know I'm an idiot sometimes. You know what I mean?
You need to hear it sometimes.
Right. And I think many people that are very passionate about things it's easy to somewhat slowly get off the path one way or the other where you don't identify with the mass of your customer base. And I've been very fortunate to have unbelievable fabricators come through here. You know, Stuart Haas had body hangers from here. The gentleman before he passed away that was GMS's, Jonathan Morrison Outlaw, he was GMS's head body guy. We have Aaron Wolf, who's an engineer at DGR now. I've been blessed with so many great people that I think they've kind of all shaped me. I work for them is really, truly the honest part.
Yeah, you're learning from them.
I've learned from every single one of them. Everybody that I've ever been around.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it was good.
Because a lot of people, it's hard for a lot of people to humble themselves, you know.
Well, I think
especially when they've got, I mean, you got skin in the game, you got ownership in the game. So I mean, it'd be easy to sit there and be like, you know, well that idea is fine and dandy, but I'm the one that's got to pay for it on the back end.
Well, I learned early on that I can't do it all myself. I tried for a long time. I wish I could tell you that I didn't and I wasn't so hard-headed and I, you know what I mean, just caved in. But to really be honest with you, over the last 5 or 6 years, I've really gone through a big change. It went from being about having to make 10% margin to make payroll to the margin doesn't necessarily become the problem because we're blessed with so much work that we don't have to do because we weren't trying to squeeze that 5 or 6% out of everybody. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
It was a different game. I hadn't necessarily played this type of a business. I have been involved in many, many businesses, but I hadn't ever necessarily been really involved with something. Selling a go-kart for $12 or $15 or $2,000 is a little bit different than $50,000, $60,000 late model stock cars, right?
I kind of look at it just in my own head comparing it. It's like if someone took your race car, like this business is selling race cars, and then you took like the guy who's a Ford dealer that deals in like passenger cars and stuff. He sells a car and he's kind of done with it. The next person that's going to see it is like the service manager
100%.
or the parts guy or something. In your line where not only are you building, the salesman didn't even build the car. The car came on a truck and it's sitting on his lot and he prices it and tries to sell you on the experience and being nice. You have to build the car. Yeah. You have to keep up with the trends and the technology and what's going on. You have to sell it to the customer. You do sell it to the customer. And then you got to be there when the customer wrecks the dang thing or is not running.
We repair it. All of them, yes.
You're way 100%. More involved than like a normal car salesman is.
100%, right? I think it hurt me some that I wasn't in this culture before.
Yeah? Like late model culture?
Yes. I think that's what I can't wait to see the next 10 or 15 years. If you take a look at this, we really have some good people that have spent, 15, 20 plus years in this culture that their businesses are starting to mature. Like, he doesn't even have my cars, and I can't wait to watch Lee Pulliam.
Yeah.
I think he's matured so much, right? Like, this guy, it will be an unbelievable owner, right? Like, those are guys that I'm intrigued because they can really be game changers in the sport. You think about how big their brand is. They've been building their brand for 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's large. So I can't wait to see guys like that make a splash.
Before I get too far down, because I do have some late model questions.
Sure.
Here's a question.
Sure.
With all your sprint car experience and all the time you spent, did the thought ever cross your mind to like go against Maxim or those guys that build sprint car chassis and stuff like that? Or did you just decide, all right, I'm kind of in NASCAR, I need to kind of stay in this wing? Did the thought ever cross your mind like, why don't I just build my own sprint car? Yeah?
Yes. I wanted to do it very badly.
Oh, man.
I wanted to do it. I went to, I really wanted to do it. But I didn't think at that time that I could get sprint car racers to evolve out of here.
Yeah, there's not really much sprint car racing around here at all.
At least there didn't used to be. Now Casey's got his place over there. Now Brown and Miller, they keep a few cars, I think, around. Like before it was tabooed, right? We were all in Ohio and Indiana. Like, that's where all the motor, Wisconsin. If you wanted to wing, if you wanted to, right? Like, J&J was in Tennessee, which was way south for a sprint car thing, right? Like, that was, oh gosh, right? So I did, but I didn't think that there would be enough customer base.
Yeah, and you have to think about that as a business owner. So.
I didn't, and I was super afraid that I couldn't cross-collateralize the two, meaning, stock car guys are stock car guys, and sprint car guys are sprint car guys, and they think completely opposite, like not even close to the same. They have different thought processes, different ways they go about almost everything. So I just didn't, although it is steel bent up, I didn't think that they overlaid that well.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you that the sprint car racing, it was just some of the greatest times of my life. I've never worked so hard, but yet been so fulfilled ever. It was amazing.
Yeah. So on this late model deal, there's, you're going, there's quite a few people, because this is kind of late model country, and
Sure.
we're not quite super late model country or anything like that.
I built some of them too.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I do remember when you built. Do y'all still do those, or did y'all kind of? Yeah.
I listen. I stay in my lane, right? Like
Okay.
I build a few for my friends. Like I build Gilliland some, David, and I build a couple for a friend of mine I have in Nashville. And it's just hard to really production build those cars. There's many people that build a great car,
Yeah.
right? Like I personally think that Jeff Foltz down there at Fury's probably got the best program that you could have.
Yeah.
Right? I really do. He's got a great program. Why do I want to dilute the pool more, right? Like,
Yeah, because he's going Seneca.
Right.
Kyle Busch has gotten into it.
yeah, but
There's-
Kyle Busch is not into it. See, that's the
not
thing
him?
I think that a lot of people don't know.
it's got his nickname on it, but I guess
it's got Rowdy on it because they paid money. But that's
Yeah,
not
it's
Kyle
Hamke.
Busch,
That's the old
right?
Hamke, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I think there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, and like I say, it's best for me to just stay in my lane where I know what it is.
That's perfectly.
I don't. I look foolish enough sometimes.
That's all right.
Stay where I am. We'll keep going.
I'll give you a chance to pitch, though. For someone out there looking for what late model to go with, what kind of do they get from you that maybe they wouldn't get from somebody else? Like what's kind of like the juice inside the orange that they would kind of get from you that maybe not getting from somebody else?
Here's where I think it changed for me. It changed for me when I took over running the day-to-day deal of this place. If you call here, you get me.
Yeah.
You don't talk to a secretary. You don't talk to a switchboard. If you call, you get me all the time. Unless I happen to be in some kind of a podcast where I put my phone on silent. But other than that, you always get me. And I think the one thing that I get in feedback is I understand that you can't work on your car from 8 to 5:30 Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
You need help at 9.
Yeah, he's working from
Or
like 6:30 to 10 o'clock.
100%. So my family doesn't always enjoy it the most, but if you want to get me, you get me. You can call here and get me. You can call my cell phone and get me. If you call here, it rings to my cell phone, right? Like I think just the access to me, to be able to, you have a question about this, you have something about this. I keep a huge amount of parts on the shelf.
Yeah, I'm looking at quite a bit of them right now.
Meaning, I think that I put myself in a customer position to where if I select somebody that I buy their car, let's take it back to I raced quarter midgets with my son.
Yeah.
And I selected a company called Stanley to build his cars. Well, if they didn't have front axles, what was I going to do?
Nothing.
Right. So I keep a huge amount of the parts that you can only get from us because I never want to be the reason why somebody can't compete. We work very hard. If you get it to me on Sunday, you can a lot of time pick it up by Tuesday or Wednesday so that you can make that race because I understand not every one of my customers has multiple cars.
Yeah.
But I still want them to compete in points championships. So most Sundays, after
Making
church
runs
lunch,
up here.
we jump in the car, and my wife and son have their church clothes on, and we will unload a customer's car. But then on Monday morning, we can have the clip cut off of it, have it on the jig that afternoon, have the bars been up for a Tuesday, and you can pick it up Tuesday afternoon, so you could still make it to the racetrack.
Wow.
That's the win. That's the win.
Yeah. And this ain't no erector set or no Legos. I mean, this is lining up geometry in a way that's a lot more significant than I think a person from the outside really understands.
100%. I'm just big on jigging everything. Everything gets jigged. If you look, everything in blue is a jig, and we have tons of them because I want the repeatability. I like the feedback. Man, I like it when we get told we suck. I know people get real offended. I used to really get offended. I love it.
Yeah.
Like when people tell me things, people come to me with things. My customer base has really made this business, to be 100% honest with you.
Yeah.
We've had some really good and we've had some really, really bad. But my customer base has made it. They've supported us this whole time. I mean, greats. Lee McCall, Lee Falk has multiple cars. We've just been very fortunate to have a lot of good people.
Yeah. Now, when you came in 2010, with the race car that they were putting out of this place, did you have to do a lot as far as redesigning it, or did you just kind of tweak as time went on? Like, what happened with that?
So, I have the jigs for both brands, the LTO and the MRC.
Okay.
The MRC had quite a bit bigger following, so we kind of phased the LTO out. The MRC car was quite a bit, in my opinion, quite a bit more conducive to right front coil bind, which at that time was a big thing. We had just started coil binding in here, and so we kind of absorbed that and just started to make some turns. We put some different upper perches on it. We redesigned the center link a touch and gave a couple different options for a couple different kind of an economy and an inflated. Does that make sense? Some of the customer base really wanted some specialized things, so we started to offer some multiple versions of things, and through that it just kind of evolved into what it is.
I'm always curious about that, because one that I was really intrigued by from the outside was what happened down at Longhorn Chassis down in Trinity, dirt late models, and they had been building cars, but they had been struggling on their national tour with Earl Pearson, and they weren't winning as much as the Rockets and the Bloomquist. Sure. Bloomquist at the time was, I think that was the most cars he had out of his shop, and these Longhorns were just far behind. And they bring in Kevin Rumley, and I'm just purely going off of all the hearsay I've heard from other people that he had to come in and he basically just said redesign the whole thing in CAD and almost start fresh, and that's what he had to do. So that's why I was kind of curious what you had to do.
I'm very torn about that, and here's why. Like, I know what people expect me to say. Yes, that's the way it works, right? Like,
yeah.
But it's not really. I think most people that understand race cars, this is terrible for a guy that sells race cars to say, but it's just the truth. I think that most people that understand race cars can figure out the small nuanced differences. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
I don't think of any of the multiple people providing cars at this time, I would say with 98% certainty that there isn't one place that you can get on one that you can't get on another.
I understand that.
Does that make sense? I think a lot of times that chassis builders over-exaggerate how important they are to it, because they think that's some of their intellectual property, right? Like
they're selling themselves.
Correct, and I think it's really wrong. I think that it's a brand for sure, right? Like, we've proven that it's a brand. If you don't believe it's a brand, each chassis builder kind of has their own brand, their own model that they go to, the own people that they and them themselves is the brand. But I think a lot of people hide it behind smoke and mirrors, and I think they scare the customer because they make it too complicated. I don't want to underplay it, but it's not.
We're not building space shuttles.
Right. It's right.
We're building race cars.
Exactly right. And I don't want to take anything away from anybody's product, including my own. But, like, listen, I hate to say this, but we were paid by a customer to set up a Frank Denny car, and we won with it too.
Yeah.
So, and those cars haven't been around in 10 years.
Yeah, I can't remember last time I seen one.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it was the intriguing part is that, yes, each car has its own little nuances, but I really believe that with the stuff that's out there today, with the technology that's out there, with the class of people, if you think about this, from late model stock cars in North Carolina and South Carolina, from a chassis builder's perspective, there are some unbelievable people involved.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable minds in motorsports involved here. And I think that's one of the things that makes this thing so difficult, why everybody is so close. Does that make sense? They're just
Yeah, it does make sense.
many smart people.
So now in 2020, going into 2020, you've been in this thing, a decade and some change.
10 years.
I don't mean to make you sound old.
No, my accountant told me the other day, we were doing a review. We were doing a review. And she's like, you realize, we talk about some of the other businesses, and she's like, you realize we've had Parrot every 10 years now. I'm like,
dang.
That's exactly what happened. It was amazing.
What has been the biggest change you've seen? And it doesn't have to necessarily be like, the cars or the mechanics or things like that. Is it what? It could be the people. So you're the biggest change you've noticed.
Yes.
What about in your drivers? How much has changed in that from who you were getting in 2010 to who you're getting now?
I think it's the same. I don't think I think we were getting the same. We had more local guys that could afford to do it on their own or that did it on their own than what I would say we have now, right? Like I don't think we have the same amount of little guys that are doing it in their garage, right? Like I think they still exist, but it's not the normal now. Like it used to be as much, which I enjoy also, right? Like I'm not here to bash the young kids. I really enjoy working with a lot of the young kids. I've been fortunate enough to work with so many of these young guys that have come even through quarter midgets. So I got an opportunity to see many of them very, very early. Tyler Ankrum, Todd Gilliland. There's many.
I remember that conversation you and I had on pit road about Todd Gilliland.
Yeah, you
remember that?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a practice day or maybe it was a race day.
It was a race day.
And you came up to me.
Because David was gone.
Yeah, David
was gone. And David called me and asked me if I would go to Ace. He said, I actually think I sent my airplane to pick him up so he could make it to the race.
Yeah.
And it was bad.
And I remember, so I see the son of a NASCAR driver out there practicing. And I don't know if I was just in a negative tone or if I was just like, all right, what am I getting here? Can this kid actually drive, or is he just kind of putt-putting and making Dad happy? And I remember you said he's better than his dad.
He's better than his dad. For sure. I've said that since day one, right? Like I've said that he was better than his dad.
What David say when you told him that?
I've been telling. I tell him that every time we talk, but like, and we talk twice a week, so he knows my thought process on it. I think there was a lot of great young kids that have come. I just want people to understand the amount of work that these kids are. I mean, they're 18 years old, and they're 14 years, 15 years in already.
Yeah.
Think about that one time.
It's a lot of money.
It's not even
a lot
money.
Of time.
Right. I mean, they're my son, Todd, a bunch of them, Ankrum, many, Repco, I think he started young. Many of these kids, you go to Salisbury on a Saturday morning, and that's who our next crop is going to come from. They're amazing, right? Or legend car kids.
Yeah.
That. I think the biggest change has come in the customer is evolving because the cost of creating their own data is becoming so expensive. And I'll continue to say it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It's the cost of creating the information that you need to compete on a weekly basis is becoming super expensive.
Like that old notebook that guys used to just have, and it had, well, this is what worked when it was this hot at this track. Correct. At this time of year.
But the problem is that guy, I use the term elder for that.
Okay.
That is I have a lot of those elders in my life that help me with, hey, this is what we did here, this is what we did here, right? And I consult many of them. The intriguing part is once you put a bump stop in there, right? Or once you put coil bind in there, at each change, now the notebook that you compiled becomes less meaningful.
Yeah, it becomes obsolete.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think, in my opinion, if I was to have to say what the biggest difference from 2010 to today is, would be the cost to acquire the data. I have a really funny story. I just bought Performancenter. It's 2010. I just bought this. And I'd taken a young man, Matt Krzyzewski, to Tri-County, and we won a couple races. late model stock car deal. And I was standing there, we were mounting some tires, and I was measuring them, and I turned to Jamie Yelton, who was very nice to me at that point in the beginning. And I said, hey, man, I have a question. Where do I get the spring rates for these tires? He's like, what? I said, data. Like, where do I get the data? And he looked at me with the most Forest City accent I've ever heard in my life and said, boy, there ain't no data here. You got to make your own data. And I was like, well, I guess I ain't in the cup deal no more. And fast forwarding 10 years, he's correct. There wasn't any data then. Now there's a lot. And that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Like, just very few people now don't have some type of way to pull their car down, or you know, I mean, 10 years ago, nobody did.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody did.
Now I could think of 5 or 6 guys off the top of my head that'll come to your shop and do it.
Correct. I mean, so in my opinion, I think things have gotten more expensive, don't get me wrong, but I think that the cost of acquiring the data is the most expensive. And apparently NASCAR believes that too, which is why they're trying to go to an IROC type car, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That we don't have to acquire so much data on. Here, NASCAR is going to give you the data that needs. I think it's a huge cost.
One of the things, and I'll get you out of here on this one, is I've heard, if anyone goes to your YouTube page and watches your videos and actually listens to them, just look at the pretty faces that are on the screen.
Yeah. I got a face for radio, man.
I forget which episode it was. You were talking to a guy, I think, who had worked here and was working at Stewart Haas or something like that.
Brian Murphy, yes. He's a head fab guy at Stewart Haas.
And y'all kind of looked ahead as what's to come in Cup with 2021. And I've got friends that work in Cup garages too that are like, you know, they all know when this thing comes down the pipe, it's going to really kind of be like an earthquake down there. And one of the things I've heard you kind of echo is what you're going to start seeing matriculate down, because a lot of those guys are going to end up on chopping blocks and lose their jobs in Cup.
Yes.
So elaborate a little bit on that for me. What is it exactly for the person that's just goes and sits in the stands and maybe watches NASCAR on Sundays after going to Ace or South Boston or Caraway or wherever they go? What's going to be the effect on like the visual on what I'm seeing from this big movement that's coming from this next gen car that NASCAR is going to roll out? And, you know, or is it really going to affect anything I see?
think it's catastrophic.
That bad?
I think it will be catastrophic. I think it will be so catastrophic that I've been preparing for it for the last 3 years myself. I think that, not to be doom and gloom, but to just be completely honest, I think that 2,000 to 3,000 people in this area will lose their jobs. I think many of them, the pay that we have been able to receive from this is quite a bit larger than what we would probably receive in the real world as far as a niche marketplace. And I think that you will start to see a lot of people that struggle to be able to maintain the level of lifestyle in which they maintained. And I believe, I know this is bad, I believe that I'm actually betting on it to implode, because I'm going to employ some of the best fabricators in the country at that point.
Because they're going to be free agents all at once.
Correct. I have been preparing for this for the last 3 years. I've sold all my property. I drive a little van now.
Yeah.
I really believe this will be the opportunity to where I can scale up and do some other things, because the help will, super highly trained help that has unlimited amounts of data, I will be able to buy at a value. And by buy, I mean bring them in, come work for me. That's my plan.
I'm glad you said that, because I think just for the fan who, like me, just watches on Sunday, and they see and hear about what's coming next year for NASCAR, and all they see is, okay, the car looks different, it's off the ground, it sounds different. You know, okay, car's going to look a little different for Cup racing. I don't think they don't see the back side.
Yeah,
they don't see the back end of the shop. They just see the donuts in the front.
I don't think they will ever. I don't think from the fans' perspective, I don't think they'll ever notice. I truly don't. I don't believe that they will. I actually think, if anything, it may help the back teams, and it will probably bring all the teams closer together, in my opinion. I believe from the infrastructure of this area, which has a large saturation of the employees that are evolved here, there, and everywhere, I think it will be catastrophic. I think it will hurt the economy in many, many ways, and I'm ready.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly think that we get one of these cycles every, few years. And I remember when I moved here 20 some years ago, I remember that Rusty Wallace had just let go 300 people or something, or Roger Penske had let go a bunch of people, and there was all these places that were scaling, and RC had let go a bunch, and I remember it's all been compressing for a while, so
there's nowhere near as many teams as it used to be.
100%.
I remember as a kid, there's that famous loop in, I say famous to me, I guess it's in Mooresville, where you go down that road and it's like a ton of these shops that all used to be, or the most used to be, race teams.
Yes.
And now a bunch of them are just like commercial businesses that don't have anything
they're
to
almost
do with
all
racing.
commercial businesses. Yes,
Yeah.
down in the race park, they're almost every single one is it's almost a commercial business outside. I truly worry about the people. Right, the sport is resilient, right? Like, it's going to go through ups and downs and turns and whatever. But part of what I think makes racing great is some of the things that we've seen lately with some of the incidents at Daytona, with whatever it was, is the, like, this is a working class group of fans, and they're passionate, and I'm afraid that we end up with all these great people with all these great skills that we don't have anywhere to put them.
Yeah, they can't all come work for you.
That's it. And I got asked the other day in an interview if I was worried about it, and I said I'm sure. I'm always concerned, but I'm definitely not worried. From the simple fact of I think many of us inside have been able to see this happening for a while, so we could get prepared for it. I think it will get diluted a little bit, right? Like, I think that the head guy that builds cars at Penske, he may try to build a few behind his place, or, you know what I mean? There may be some more saturation, but all in all, the core groups of chassis builders right now have a very strong foothold just because there's sheer volume.
Yeah.
And the sheer volume is what you need to have a business. If you have 1 or 2 cars racing weekly that are yours because you just started to do X or Y, it makes it very difficult, because the odds of those cars, how many bumpers can you sell in a week if you only got 2 cars out there?
Not many.
Right. So I think I'm just finally right now starting to see the fruits of the labor that were, and that's a 10-year struggle, right? Like, to get there. So I'm appreciative that I'm not starting now.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
You're a lot better off.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate.
Well, brother, I appreciate it.
Yeah, as always. You're the man.
Always appreciate our talks.
For sure.
It's kind of nice to talk to someone that doesn't have a Southern accent. I like a little diversity.
Now, if I call home, they say that I have a Southern accent, which you're correct. See, that's exactly right.
They need to come down here a little bit.
Exactly.
They'll be swamped.
Man, I appreciate. What are you going to do? Where are you going? What are you going to do this year?
I've only got 6 races on my schedule. I got filling in for a car store race, and then I got 5 dirt modified races, and I love those dirt modifieds. They're so true because they got so much horsepower, but they're on a tiny little tire.
Right.
So it's like you can put the drag racing motor in there. You got to make it work on this little tire.
Is that like what Stremy does? The lethal?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's those kind of race cars.
Yeah.
Those UMP mods.
Yeah, he's my bud. I like me and Stremy get along pretty good. He was one originally that was real good. We've done a lot of. I think that people need to know this is about groups of people that we kind of all have just been in this grind together for the length of time, and I think that's what makes it great. That's why we're all buddies. We all
We all want to go race.
That's it, right?
Just some of us drive and some of us work on them, and some of us get paid to eat concessions and stand in the tower in the air conditioning. And
you got the best gig.
I tell you, it is tough when that air conditioner drops below 68 degrees. I mean, it's a little tough to announce a race, but and then the guys down on the ground that are lining up cars are like flipping me the bird from the infield. Like, it's a tough life up here.
I don't disagree. You see good things for Ace Speedway coming?
I think so. I think.
Are you involved over there at all or no?
Nope. I'm gonna go there and watch as a fan. I've had the chance to, but I really just kind of want to go, and that's my main thing this year. I've got a Microsoft Word document hanging in my bedroom. None of the races on there are ones I'm working. They're races I want to go watch, like modifieds at Martinsville or Cars Tour at Ace or World of Outlaws at Lancaster or the sprints at I have not been to Eldora. I definitely want to go to Eldora.
You have to go. It's amazing. Just amazing. I mean, I haven't been to Eldora in probably 15 years. We used to go every weekend, right? So like
you got spoiled.
Yeah, right. And just absolutely amazing.
I got to go to a King's Royal. That's on my bucket list.
Oh, it's the greatest. What do you think about Myrtle Beach?
I understand it. It makes me sad, but I do understand it. Like it's just the time we're in.
Yep.
I mean, that land is crazy. That land was nowhere near that valuable 30, 40 years ago, but now it is. And
I worry about it for all tracks. Do you?
I think most. There's some that are so far out in the middle of nowhere that it's like, okay. Like people used to think about like Ace. Mm-hmm. And like, oh, they could build a housing development out here. And I actually had a guy who raced who was in real estate and was like, no, the infrastructure out here, the zoning out here would never work. But, Hickory or a lot of these other places, it's like, it's for a lot of these, for some places it's a worry, but some places like 311 Motor Speedway, that dirt track, it's so far out there, no one would build a housing development out on it. So I guess it's half and half.
I never thought racetracks would be our hang up. I never thought that. I never thought.
Yeah,
it was.
I think we all got. It's kind of like when you look on Racing Reference, and you see all the tracks that used to run Grand National and Busch and stuff, and how many of them are gone. It's like, man, how much more popular was this back just 30 years ago than it is now? But then, crazy stat, they posted on Twitter the other day about the ratings for the Daytona 500, and they said even the worst one beats the Indy 500. And I'm like, in my mind, how is that possible?
How is that possible?
Because to me, Indy is got way more history behind it behind Daytona.
And look at the stands, right? Like, I mean,
they got 150,000 people.
Right. We used to go to that as a kid.
Did you ever go to the Snake Pit?
Yes.
Oh.
So I had this one really crazy uncle. His name was Fred, and he was a die-hard IndyCar fan, and he was a die-hard AJ Foyt fan actually. So we would go over there the day before the race so that we could park in line. We would line up right outside of the entrance to the racetrack, and we would park in line, and then we would barbecue and grill and sleep in the car so that we could be the first ones to go in and park next to the fence.
Right there at 16th and Georgetown.
Yeah, so then we could watch whatever was happening, and we would do this throughout the entire time. That was kind of where some of the seeds were planted. That was a big thing. My uncle would take me to these races, and he bought a go-kart later on in life, and I raced it for a little while. Post me selling my others. Those were great times in the Snake Pit, but it's not like it was. I got a really good education as a young boy as to anatomy of the other side. Right. And my mom, I'll never forget coming home. She's like, "Did you enjoy it?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, was there a lot of good stuff to look at? I said, you'll
Yes.
never believe it, right? Like, and I went to my room. I didn't know.
Yeah, nothing else needs to be.
So good.
See, that's the thing where people, I see people complain about how long Speed Weeks is.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, they spend a month at Indy.
Man.
And they kick like, I remember watching Indy 500s where like 10 people didn't qualify or
Right.
15. Like, they're there for a month.
It was such a. I really enjoyed it. I was really fortunate early on. I didn't have parents that were in the machine, but I had so very many friends
That were in the machine.
in a little tiny town. Like, I'm talking, there's 2,000 people in this little town that I live in, right? Like, there wasn't, the odds were so stacked against me to ever be involved in racing. I should have been farming or doing, they were so stacked.
Yeah.
So to be able to have 4 or 5 very bright young men that all kind of bonded together, and the compassion that our dads had is
To
the
put
thing
up with it, yeah.
that really, as a dad now, that I see, you know, like, I'm telling you, there's many men that nobody will ever know their names. Dean Souter was one of them, or Sam Hornish's father, or these men kind of raised me as their own. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they looked out for you.
100%.
They got you to the track. They probably barked at you when you did something wrong.
Right, and they would try to help correct me, and that's the interesting part, because they weren't my parent, but they...
You might as well have been their kid.
Might as well. And you know, what was funny is when I would come off the road from the World of Outlaw deal, I would go see them.
Yeah.
I would want to talk to them. They were... I just have been... I still believe mentorship is the way.
It's got to be.
I really do. And I know a lot of people don't, but I just believe that mentorship is the way. I mean, I think the more we can tell the younger people, the better. That doesn't mean they have to listen. I understand. And I'm only 42, so it's not like I'm 70.
Nah,
right?
you only got 11 years on me.
I just want... I really think that's where the win is. At least for me, that's what gets me excited talking to a guy like Kerry Bodenheimer, or having right before you came in, and we were kind of talking a little bit after, Tri-County Motor Speedway called, right?
Yeah.
And I get a chance to communicate with them and give some advice to them of some things I've seen, and those are the things that I like. That's what I think drives me more than any of the other stuff now.
And you got to be willing to pull the curtain back. I remember there was a magician that came through. I think I was in elementary school, middle school, and he did the tricks, and I was like, "Oh man, that's cool," you know, it's sleight of hand and stuff.
Sure.
But then after he did all the tricks, he came back and he said, "All right, now I'm gonna show you how I did it." And part of you, you know, as an adult, you might look at that and be like, well, you just gave up all your secrets. But as a kid, you're like, I just saw something cool. Now I know how it works.
Right.
And you like I got a kid this year that said something about, you know, wanting to learn about announcing and stuff.
Yeah.
And I told his mom, I said, well, here's the races I'm doing.
Let's go.
Whichever he wants to come, I'll come pick him up.
100%.
And he can just... we'll get him a pit pass, and he can just follow me all night, and he'll see how stupid I am or whatever. But let him come on, because otherwise you lose a whole generation.
Right, and I'm real passionate.
There's a lot of
right
other
now.
stuff they can go do. They can go play Fortnite. They can go play whatever else. Get them, show them what's going on.
I'm real passionate right now about the mentorship. I really believe that we have shut so many, especially this version, right?
Yeah.
This like, people think I'm an idiot because more than a few that I show everything.
Yeah.
I show everything. You want to see how I show you? Come in. Like, sometimes you ain't got to come in. I post enough stuff
Yeah, you show it on Facebook.
social media that I think you can get a pretty good understanding of what we're doing here. And if you don't understand, call one of the numbers. I promise you, I'm going to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
So it's a win. I think we got to keep trying to leave things better than we found it. I think sometimes
Now
that gets
more than
lost,
ever.
For sure.
Now more than ever, definitely.
For sure. I think we keep going, no matter how bad it gets. I think we just go till we can't go anymore, and then
Yeah.
we go more.
Pass it off to somebody else.
That's it, right? Man, I so appreciate you coming over here. I know
Hey.
it's a long drive, and you work a real job, and
A real non-fun job.
Listen, I keep posting online.
I know, but it's so far. If I lived closer, if I wasn't married and I lived closer,
right.
Definitely.
That's something that.
Why don't you just bring all this shop to Rockingham County, North Carolina? Then I'll come work for you.
I'm being really honest with you. I have so many people now that are really interested in the social. I think if nothing else, I've at least created some awareness that, hey, we need to try to develop as much as we can out there for content for people to view. Now, I want you to know, 5 years ago, me and Langley, Austin almost fought to the death over this social media because I didn't want anybody to see anything. And I'll never forget.
Now you're the guy with the cameras in the studio
right?
in here.
Greg and Marlo and I were talking the other day about how I remember a customer came in and took a picture of their car. Okay, now it was their car. They had bought it. And I remember telling Greg, because I didn't know who the customer was. And I remember I got a call, and they said, man, we've seen your new car on Facebook. It's amazing. And I lost my mind.
Yeah,
this is how ignorant I was, right? Like, I was so ignorant. I was afraid that somebody was going to see what we were doing. And then I realized I think we're doing pretty bad A stuff here. Yeah. So I'd like to show you. I would, because if you understand it, you can live it then. If you understand how it works, you got a great shot of having success. If I just give you a little tip here and a little tip there, you're on your own, right? Like, so I'm trying to give it all. I'm scheduled to do some setup videos.
Nice.
So that we can, I don't even care if it's not mine, right? Like, I think if I can give some of that data away that I'm just holding on to, right? Like, if I can give some of it away, I think it'll be beneficial. We filmed a little bit of stuff about hanging some bodies and doing some things like that, and I don't read that well. I just don't read that well. It's not a good way.
You dyslexic?
No, I just don't learn by reading.
You learn by doing.
Right. I 3 minutes in, I'm thinking about something else.
Yeah.
Right? Like, podcasts are amazing for me. I listen to so many podcasts because I can listen to them and multitask and do other things and continue on. I never have since I've been a boy. I could never really stay focused on the book.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have that.
And so
that's why I like audiobooks better than regular books.
And I like video. So this video has really spurred me to, well, if I learn this way, maybe there's a lot of other people. I'm not the only one out here. Right, 100%. So that's why I think the passion has come to create some cool content, do a little podcasting, do some different things. As you can see, we have an air hockey table in our shop. We also act like goofball, and a couch and the TVs, and I just knew that I needed to. I enjoyed being in a shop. Yeah. Right. Some of my fondest memories in life were me and 3 or 4 of my friends. We weren't old enough to drink adult beverages. We just hang out in the go-kart shop, right? Like, that was great. So, so many shops that you go in are very stiff. So I wanted to make it not that. I wanted to be able to have Cars Toured TV on the TV, and we're sitting on a leather sectional sofa, and I wanted to be able to have a foosball table, and like, we can still work, but like,
it's a lot more cool to hang out in a shop than it is a classroom.
100%. So
I agree completely.
That's why we kind of revamped all the shop to try to just make it to where we can be more relaxed, and you can spend 30 minutes with me if you need to learn how to square your right side. Sit on the couch. We'll figure it out. There's a soda machine right there. Grab a soda.
It's a Cheerwine one too. You don't see that. You don't see that much anymore.
Right. That thing's been here forever.
Thank you for listening to yet another edition of the Half Price Concessions Podcast. Do us a favor. Whichever podcast app you're listening to this on, if there's a section to leave a rating and review, please do so. It would really help us out a ton. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at HPC Podcast. Be sure to like our Facebook page by searching for the Half Price Concessions Podcast. If you got family or friends that want to listen but don't have a podcast app, you can go to our website to listen to any and all of our episodes at www.hpcpodcast.com. www.anchor.fm/HPC podcast. Also, if you want to email the show, you can do so by emailing halfpricedconcessionspodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear any and all feedback that you have. Thank you for listening. My name is Tyler Williams, and I hope that you have a great day.